The CSO has published revised estimates for 2015 up from 7.8% to 26.3%. What are the implications of that?
Well, it has to be stressed that the CSO is compiling these numbers on the basis of mandatory international standards. So these numbers are compiled correctly. But one of the consequences of these standards is that the numbers are distorted. GDP is heavily distorted. In particular, in 2015, what we had was a number of multinational firms restructuring their operations, some of whom re-domiciled themselves to Ireland. As a result of that, there was a very large increase in the amount of capital assets recorded in Ireland. The activities associated with these capital assets are then being recorded as part of Irish GDP, even if they are not carried out in Ireland. So, for example, on exports, we had a lot of contract manufacturing, so manufacturing carried out outside Ireland for these multinational firms, and that becomes part of the Irish GDP. So in view of these distortions, it is the case that the headline GDP numbers do not give an accurate reflection of the Irish economy and what's going on domestically in the country. And it's necessary to look beyond those numbers. So a number of indicators have been developed. We in the bank have developed one indicator, underlying domestic demand, which is basically excluding investment in aircraft and intellectual property investment. So that gives, we think, a more accurate picture of what's going on in the domestic economy. And this has been growing by 5% last year. Now, overall, while the headline numbers are distorted and exaggerate the underlying position, it has to be stressed that the growth in the economy has been solid and sound. We've had very significant growth in employment last year, up 2%. Unemployment came down to 7.8%. So the underlying economic story is still very strong.
So according to the Quarterly Bulletin, then, what is the outlook for the Irish economy?
The outlook for the economy remains very favourable. In GDP terms, we would see growth being around 5% in 2016 and 3.5% in 2017. Underlying domestic demand is relatively strong. We think growth is balanced. We're reflecting both strong trade growth and also domestic demand. So employment is likely to continue to grow at a relatively strong rate. For example, over the 2 years, we see employment increasing by 70,000. And we will see the total level of employment in the country rising above 2 million for the first time since the crisis.
How have you taken account of Brexit in the latest Quarterly Bulletin?
So we have actually incorporated an estimate of the impacts of Brexit on our growth forecast. And we estimate that growth will be lower by about 0.6% in 2017 as a result of Brexit. Now, it has to be stressed that these estimates are very uncertain, and we would not necessarily be surprised if the final impact on the Irish economy was larger than what we've penciled into this forecast.